Hi everyone, this is Christina, and that is my cat Kitty. Yeah, I know, real creative name there. Here to talk to you today about the top 10 games that have inspired me or moved me or just for whatever reason just always stuck with me. And they're in order in a bit. I guess they're in order in a way that has stuck in my mind the most, if that makes any sense. So I'll just stop rambling and get to it. So number 10 for me would have to be Lavitz's death at the end of Legend of Dragoon. While most people look at me like, really? And was that sad to you? Yeah, because you get to know these characters and you love them so much, and then he just sacrifices himself at the end for everybody else. And not to mention all of the time I spent developing that character, going right out the window. But anyway, number 9 would definitely have to be the end of Crisis Core. And even though, if you played Crisis Core, you knew it was coming the whole time, but watching the interaction between Zack and Cloud was so moving. And I will never forget that, ever. Tears in my eyes in the car playing it. People looking at me like I'm weird. But yeah, really sad moment. Number 8, Drakengard. So most people I talk to haven't really played Drakengard, and while it wasn't the most fantastic game ever, it was still something I loved. And I think it came out when I was in 8th grade. I was really young, and I got to fly around on dragons. That was the coolest thing ever. But at the end of Drakengard, if you've played it, if not, spoiler alert. Obviously all these are going to be spoilers, but Caim and Angelus's hearts are connected, so if one of them dies, they both die. And ultimately, that's what ends up happening, and it's really, really sad. I promise you. If you haven't played the game, it's so, so sad. Number 7, I'm looking off to the side, by the way, because I have a list. I get nervous on camera. It's Final Fantasy IV. When Palom and Porom, they petrify themselves to save everybody else, and while some people claim they don't think it's really that sad, it is. It's really sad. But you have to walk through that hallway, and they're still there petrified, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I'll always remember being frustrated, because I was still really young when I played this game, being really frustrated that there was nothing I could do to change them back, to bring them back to life. They were 2 of my favorite characters, actually. So, there's that. Next we have, Gears of War 2. Yeah. I have not played Gears of War 3 yet. I do know what happens, but I haven't played it yet, so it hasn't affected me just quite yet. But Gears of War 2, when Dom finds Maria, easily has to be one of the most heart-wrenching scenes, and really well done, that I've ever seen. And in the room with several of my guy friends, watching them tear up, pretty sad, pretty awful to watch. And I remember after watching that scene, just not being able to really play afterwards. I was just sort of, I need to put this down for a little while. That was pretty hard. Next would be Heavy Rain. While I have 2 things to say about Heavy Rain, actually. The part where you have to cut off a piece of your finger in order to save your son, essentially. While that is not necessarily sad, that was an extremely stressful scenario for me. For some reason. I mean, I'm sure it was for everybody else playing the game, but it was really, really, really stressful. And then, I'm not sure how many of you have gotten the bad ending for Heavy Rain. I didn't until I decided to just, on a whim, go on YouTube and watch it. I've always gotten the good ending. It's pretty heavy. It's pretty sad. If you haven't watched it, go YouTube that right now. If you have experienced that ending, you know just how knife in the heart that it really is. Next would be Final Fantasy VII. The obvious moment, obviously. I almost left it out just because everybody does that in their top 10 saddest moments, but it was the first game that I played in the PS1 that the entire story just captivated me. And most people didn't like Eris all that much, from what I understand. I really liked her a lot. I was rooting for her and not Tifa, which I get a lot of flack for now, but whatever. built her up a lot, and people say she was useless. The way I used Eris, she was not useless. And when that scene came, that was probably the most surprising video game moment for me ever. Really, really did not expect that to happen. I was hoping it was some bad dream where you could bring her back or whatever. Like, you could Palom and Porum in 4. You could bring them back eventually. They got revived at the end, even though you couldn't play them again. Hoping that would happen, it never did. So that definitely has to be on the list. I know everybody has it, but had to do it. So second to the last, Metal Gear Solid, for me, would have to be Sniper Wolf's death. I'll never forget playing the game. I played it about 4 times in a row, back to back. And one of the reasons I wanted to keep playing it was because the stories were so good for each of the characters. And Sniper Wolf was my favorite, and the most heart-wrenching of all of them. And to listen to her story as she's dying was just so beautifully done. I know I get people arguing with me that the boss's death in Metal Gear 3 is actually sadder. I actually find it about equal. I have a hard time. They're both really sad and really well done, but I had to go with Sniper Wolf because Metal Gear Solid was the first Metal Gear game I ever played, and it was just so well done. And last but not least, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of eye rolls for this, is Final Fantasy VI. And the reason I did this number 1 was because it was the first game that I ever played, ever, when I was very, very young, that really hit home with me. Really loved the story. And Celeste is my favorite character. And I think as a kid, the reason why originally was because she had blonde hair and I had blonde hair. You know, the reasons kids come up with why they like somebody. And my favorite colors are green and blue, and that's what she wore. But at the very... I'm actually kind of in the middle of the game. If you don't save Sid, she ends up trying to commit suicide. And she jumps off a cliff. And I actually cried. It's the first time I'd ever played a video game that made me cry. It was so well done. And I know I keep saying that, so well done, but I think that it's hard to make games anymore. It's hard to make stories anymore where they are actually well done and really hit home. And I would love to see some of these moments that I had mentioned happen again, differently, more creatively. Come on, guys, give us something that affects everybody super deeply. So, now that you guys have watched this and I've rambled on, I probably sound like a huge idiot. Please feel free to comment. If you have any of your own moments that you would like to add to this, please do. Question why I chose things, feel free to. But anyway, it's getting late, and I'm going to go off to bed now. So, have a good night, everybody.